morning, everyone that joined us today. This is the first installment of our new AAMP U or AAMP University. Every month we're going to be showcasing or featuring a different product or part of our company here at AAMP of America. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jeff Smith. I am the Director of Training here at AAMP of America. In with me today, I have Eric LeClaire, who is the PAC Product Manager, and I also have Rick. No, I know Rick. No, I was like, I also have Rick Costello here, who is the Tech Support Manager. So we're gonna have the ability to ask questions along the way. For those of you that are on your PC, you see there's a text box to the left. If you want to ask a question or have a comment, you can type it there. So let's dive in and get started. So AAMP University, like I said, is going to be something that we're going to do monthly, and this is going to be a better way for us to reach out to our dealers, our installers, those of us that buy from us directly or through distributors, just to make sure that you guys get a better grip and or understanding of our products. The first of those products that we're going to be dealing with today is going to be Radio Pro. Radio Pro, as you can see on the screen, it comes in 3 different varieties, 3, 4, and 5, and is available for Audi vehicles, Chrysler, Ford, the large General Motors platform, Honda, Nissan, Mazda, and Volkswagen. So many people, for those of you that aren't familiar with Radio Pro, always want to know where exactly Radio Pro came from. Well, in 2012, PAC engineers decided that there was a lot of chatter about the amount of space being taken up behind the dash, how difficult it was to pack so many different devices in behind the radio when you're doing an aftermarket radio installation. So Radio Pro is actually 3 devices in one. It is the vehicle-specific wiring harness. It is the data module, whether that's a CAN module or a LAN bus module or whatever that vehicle particularly needs, along with the steering control module built into one. So that module, when you take the aspect of why Radio Pro is important, you see that you take the steering control interface along with that data module and the harness. No programming is required for the steering control modules for whatever vehicle that it's going into if you want to use the harness or steering controls at the face value of the buttons in the vehicle. So if your vehicle has volume up and down, track up and down, mute, source, or mode, all those functions have already been pre-assigned. So there's no need to program it any further unless you want to add extra features that are available in the manual for each Radio Pro. All of this, most importantly, saves you installation minutes. And of course, we all know in our industry, time is money, right? So who wouldn't want to do more installs and save more time and make more money? So what we've pretty much gathered in the field from testing and talking to our installers that use our products is that we pretty much have an average installation time of about 15 minutes, okay? With that being said, this is how we calculated the 15-minute time frame. From the point that you physically get the car in your shop, disassemble the dash, and take the radio out of the dash, okay? From that point, let's say you already have your aftermarket Pioneer, Sony, JVC, whatever, double DIN nav unit on the bench, ready to be wired up. So by the time you physically take that aftermarket unit out of the dash, wire it up, power ground, accessory, reverse, illumination, VSS, all the options that are available, and have it ready to go back into the dash along with the steering controls, it's about an average of 15 minutes. So the fact that now you don't have to have a harness, worry about a steering control module, hope and pray that you programmed it the right way or that it auto-programmed, okay? All of our pieces are already pre-programmed, ready to go. The only adjustment you have to do is going to be set it to the brand of radio that you are installing along with it.
Like you said, you don't really have to reprogram the steering wheel controls if you wanted to change the values or do like a short press, long press where you're actually programming two functions to one steering wheel control button.
Exactly.
That's the only time you would go in and then pre-program or change the programming.
Correct. Because 99% of all of our Radio Pro modules do actually support additional features such as short press, long press, or even some of the climate control features in some vehicles. Each Radio Pro has a unique instruction manual inside of it that's available in paper form and online on our PAC Audio website in digital format also. So the biggest question most times is which Radio Pro is needed. With the 3 different versions that's out there, this is the easiest way to figure out exactly. Once your customers come in and you've made the purchase and you're trying to figure out exactly which car, which module works for the particular application that you're doing, the easiest thing to do, first of all, is going to go to the PAC website, pac-audio.com. At the very top of the page, there are dark blue icons, and one of those is going to be called products. Once you push the product icon, you're going to have the ability to scroll down to radio replacement. At the radio replacement tab, this is where you would want to start with your year, make, and model of the vehicle. Once you do that, a complete list of radio replacements for that vehicle will be shown. For this particular application, we chose a 2013 Chevrolet Avalanche, and it pulled up or selected the RP5 GM31. As you can see on the website, once you do this, it's going to show you the ability to go through the application chart, look at any technical documents, and also give you a description and features for each model. Halfway down the page, you'll see that there are different firmware revisions. If you've never seen one of our Radio Pro boxes before, on the bottom of each Radio Pro box, it's going to physically show you the revision number. That is extremely important because if you do have an issue, 9 times out of 10, that issue can be resolved with a software update. The other benefit to the firmware revisions is that as cars change, as vehicles change, as radio manufacturers change, we can always go in and make these firmware adjustments and or updates so that your inventory is never old or out of date. So let's just say you purchased a Radio Pro a year ago and it's been sitting on your shelf because for whatever reason you haven't had that particular vehicle come into your shop. Now, all of a sudden on a Saturday afternoon, 4 o'clock, this guy pops in and here's your first opportunity to use this brand new Radio Pro that's been sitting on your shelf. Now, even though it's a year old, the first thing you should probably do is check that firmware to make sure that it is 100% up to date with the latest firmware that we've placed out on the website. And we will go over later exactly how you update it. Eric?
Actually, since you're talking about firmware for Radio Pro, I figured now's a good time to mention we just launched new firmware for all the Radio Pro SKUs, and they are hitting the website today. So there will be 15 new versions of firmware available for all the different Radio Pro SKUs.
Right.
On the PAC site, which you can discuss later, I guess, how to get to.
Right. So what Eric is saying is that because of the fact that we constantly have our engineers in and out of cars and we stay in tune with our industry, currently every Radio Pro that is produced currently, which is 20, I want to say there are 20.
There was 15 that were updated, I know that.
Yeah, there were 20 total models. There are 15 of them that are currently being updated, and it should be available on the website today. This latest update adds the new voice recognition for Alpine, since Alpine has added the new CarPlay features and things like that.
And it does add some applications in some makes.
Right, yeah.
Not on every make, but there's some new vehicles that we're able
Right, and a few new vehicles also. So basically, as the industry changed before this previous year, CarPlay was not really even a thought or a process, but since Alpine changed their their internal structure, we saw the need for our Radio Pro to be updated. The same updates we do along the way when Bluetooth wasn't an option for many radios for steering wheel controls, and now we added that into the mix for specific updates for each radio for Bluetooth answering in calls. Of course, all the standards, volume up and down, track forward, and things like that. But now that we're adding these other features into aftermarket radios, it of course was prevalent or evident for us to make these updates to our Radio Pro so they don't defeature the vehicle in any way or the aftermarket radio. So let's go into each level of Radio Pro and talk about what exactly they do. A lot of you may currently be using our Radio Pro or using some of our other lower model or lower, less feature Radio Pro replacements like the C2R modules or our OS modules. The Radio Pro 3 is going to be the soon replacement, correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, for most of the older C2R SKUs that are out there currently. The first three Radio Pro 3 levels are the GM models, since that's one of the most popular options. So looking at the screen here, you see that one of the biggest things about our radio replacement devices is that they have a high current accessory out. So the fact that a lot of the newer double-DIN radios are all mostly DVD players, built-in nav and things like that, they require a lot more power. You can also piggyback and tie in the power supply for your backup camera if you're adding a backup camera to the vehicle, and without any question, this device has enough accessory output, enough current capability to power that backup camera along with the head unit you're installing. We keep all of the data outputs needed to install this radio, such as speed sense, reverse, and your emergency brake output. We retain the factory amplifier if it's an option in the vehicle. So our modules don't care if the vehicle is amplified or non-amplified. That's one of the biggest downfalls to a lot of our competitors, is that you don't have to stock multiple different models depending on if the car is amplified or non-amplified. We do that with one particular, with one SKU. Data controlled wrap output. Now, the next line, the data bus, keeping the data bus intact. For me, this was one, when I was an installer at my own shop, this was one of the biggest issues that kept making the Radio Pros be so much of a better option over the competitors out there. Because the data bus in these Radio Pros was never an issue. There are a lot of customers that we get tech support calls, and Rick, you can kind of attest to this, that they've been using a different module and now they have check engine lights, or they take their car in to get emissions done and you don't have the ability to use the OBD2 port and things like that. So our vehicles, and this is the way I was explained, Eric, you can tell me if I'm wrong, is that our modules run in parallel with the factory data bus and don't interfere with that at all, where a lot of other manufacturers actually stop that or hinder the vehicle data bus from continuing to work properly.
Yeah, in the past we had issues where if one of our modules was installed and you tried to take the vehicle into the shop to get it worked on, it could be an issue, but we've pretty much eliminated that from being an issue now.
And
right.
Occasionally you'll run into mix and matching different interfaces from different companies on the data bus lines. It could cause a data bus clash as well. I've seen that where you use a competitor's steering wheel control module with one of our radio replacement modules and both are tying into the CAN bus. That can present problems sometimes.
Right. So that's a big thing for us. We make sure that we don't damage the vehicle or leave you with the situation to where your customers are regretting the fact that they've allowed you to change the radio in their vehicle. The Radio Pro 3 is pre-wired for steering wheel control module. So this would be the first option if your customer, number one, wants to change their radio, but doesn't necessarily either have steering wheel controls or don't have the money at that point in time to replace their steering wheel control option in the vehicle. So the Radio Pro 3s are pre-wired for our very popular SWIRC and all the other SWI versions that we have out there available. So they could always come back and add that steering control module at any time. All of the Radio Pros are updatable in the packaging through a module that we'll go over later called the PAC Up. And the Radio Pros, because the first ones are available for GM, are adjustable chime for the factory chimes that are still left available in the vehicle without having to add any external speakers and things like that.
One thing to note on the steering wheel control add-on for the Radio Pro 3 is that if you follow the instructions from the SWIRC, it's going to tell you version 1 for GM. It's pretty common. People will look at those instructions as opposed to instructions with the RP3 module, and it actually needs to be programmed for version 2. So just make sure you're paying attention to the manual. A lot of times people won't grab it because it's pretty much color for color wiring, so you won't even look at that manual. But just make sure to browse through that portion of the manual on the RP3s.
Cool. All right. Radio Pro 4. So if you look at the slide here, the Radio Pro 4 does everything that the Radio Pro 3 does, except for now you're going to gain built-in steering control retention. So the 3.5 out or the single wire serial out for whatever radio manufacturer you're replacing is currently built into every RP4. No programming required. You simply look at the side of the unit, there's a rotary dial, you look at the instructions and it tells you Alpine's 1 or Kenwood's 2 or Sony, whatever your radio manufacturer is, and you just simply turn the dial for that particular radio and the steering controls are going to work at face value. It also retains factory amplifiers, whether it be a standard or premium amplified system. Now this is where we're going to get into some of the more advanced features such as rear seat control retention. So if you guys are familiar with the Ford vehicles and the Chevrolet vehicles that have the radio controls on the back of the console, in most other applications when you're using other manufacturers' harnesses, that function is going to be lost. I actually have a Suburban, a 2005 model, and that was one of the biggest things for me is that even if I'm not in the front seat, I can sit in the back seat and still have some control over the radio system from the rear seat. That's a big feature that we made sure that we were able to retain starting at the Radio Pro 4 level. And a lot of these features are capable in every module, but it depends on the actual vehicle's features themselves. So if a vehicle technically doesn't have that, then of course it's not going to be retained. Starting at Radio Pro 4 level also is where we start rear seat entertainment retention. There are some additional harnesses that may be needed in some vehicles, which we'll go over that later. But we make sure that you don't have to stuff and hide radios in the dash or extend radios to the back side panels of vehicles anymore. Radio Pro 4 has that built into a lot of the different models. Also starting in Radio Pro 4, we have factory backup camera retention in a few of those models depending on the vehicle also. Radio Pro 5, now this is where we're going to get the most features currently available in Radio Pro. All the features of RP3 and RP4 along with lane departure warning. Radio Pro 5 is going to give you the most ability as far as retaining OnStar. Any of your OnStar or telematics features are always going to be in the Radio Pro 5 category. So lane departure, OnStar, factory Bluetooth retention in some vehicles. We even give you the antenna adapter in the box. This is just an extra little prize we do just because you're already in the dash, you're making all these connections. Instead of you having to get out and go hunt to figure out which antenna adapter you need, you may not have it in stock. In order to make sure that that install happens without any hitches, we actually put the antenna adapter for that particular vehicle in the box for you. A lot of people have always questioned, and I know Rick, I've heard this before, how does the XM work in tech support? The XM, the radio that you install has to have an aux input because the Radio Pro is going to accept a 2-channel RCA input from the factory system into the aftermarket radio, and then all of the display information for the XM will continue to be in the instrument cluster for the driver. So along with that, backup camera retention, just like the RP4, and parking sensors. I've said it before, and you guys will hear me say this multiple times, we do not de-feature vehicles. We make sure that any function that was there that runs through the radio is retained in some way possible. Anything you guys might want to add for Radio Pro 5?
Keep in mind some applications, if it's like a 2011 Escalade, for instance, you're wanting to retain the rear seat audio, you'd have to use an additional harness, a GMRVD. So check to make sure that if you're needing to pass the audio from the rear seat entertainment in, that there's not an additional harness that would be necessary. Depending on the application, there usually is.
The only other thing I would pitch in on Radio Pro 5 is that some of our older radio replacement interfaces, if you used amplified or non-amplified, was either a different harness or a different module, or you'd have to hack off some RCAs. Radio Pro 5 is set up for amplified or non-amplified vehicles, and it just basically where you plug the harness in on the side of the module. So it's indicated right on the Radio Pro 5 module, amplified audio, non-amplified audio. It's a simple plug-and-play installation in either situation.
Right. Cool. All right. So now let's take a quick look at a little bit of a comparison here between us and two of our competitors. This is on one of our newer modules, the RP4CH21. Hopefully you guys can see this. This is just a quick exercise to show you the differences between our modules and other competitors out there. We're going to call the first competitor C, and the other competitor M. So read into it what you will. Basically, you see that our module is the same price across the board as competitor C, but with competitor M, they're less money just on the module itself, but their module is also not going to have steering controls built directly into the unit. You're going to have to add the separate module with additional installation for their steering control module. We share the ability to be USB updatable along with competitor M, but when you get into retaining factory amplifier, you're not going to have the ability to retain the factory amplifier with competitor C or competitor M. And if I didn't mention this earlier, this is on the RP4CH21 for newer body style Chrysler vehicles. Vehicle settings. This is going to be the fact that some of the newer Chrysler vehicles have the ability to be placed into jack mode, or the ability for the vehicle air suspension to be put into different modes, so that when you go to service the vehicle to change a tire and things like that, you set that through the radio. We have that feature retained in the module by use of the PAC up, along with a few other vehicle features. Climate controls. Who would want to get their radio replaced and lose their climate controls? We make sure that that's a feature that stays in the vehicle. Blind spot detection, lane departure. There's no reason for anyone to ever defeature a vehicle. I can't imagine going and paying $40,000, $50,000 for a vehicle, replacing the stereo because I'm unhappy with it, and then losing all these factory functions. So we make sure that all that is 100% left intact. Factory phone, backup camera, we share that ability with competitor C, along with the navigation outputs. So we all do navigation outputs and retain accessory output. But steering controls, our steering controls are built on board, like we've mentioned many times before. Competitor C, theirs are built on board also. But then we're going to talk about competitor M. You still have to add a separate module for their devices, for their harnesses, to give you steering control output. We all have the accessory output. Ours is 10 amp, competitor C is a 2 amp, and competitor M is 10 amp also. Now, vehicle coverage. As you see, we cover way more vehicles than the other two competitors, and then we also don't really care what size factory screen or how the vehicle was equipped to begin with, where these are all limitations to where you have to think about, you have to carry so many more SKUs in your store when you're dealing with competitor C and competitor M, versus what we offer you is a single SKU that will cover more vehicles to get more jobs done even faster. The whole line of Radio Pro modules is meant for you to keep less inventory in your store as far as harnesses go, and cover more vehicles and get installations done as fast as possible the right way the first time. Anything you guys want to add to that? No? Good? All right.
This order's a little different from my order. You're going to do point 2 later, right?
Right after this. Yeah, right after this. All right. So let's go back and do a quick little recap here of the entire Radio Pro family. Radio Pro 3, 4, and 5. This is pretty much a little step chart to show you exactly what the differences are between the three current models. Radio Pro 3 from the ready sign all the way down shares all the same features as the 4 and 5, which is updatability, retaining the warning chimes, navigation radio ready, which means all of the outputs are pre-wired there for faster installation, data bus or amplifier integration, the high amperage 12 volt accessory output, and the vehicle wiring harness. No programming required once you install or add a steering control module for the RP3. The RP4, the steering controls are already there. You're going to have the ability to start retaining your rear seat entertainment and also the rear seat controls. So the only advantage at that point over the RP5 has over the 4 are going to be the OnStar retention or telematics along with the antenna adapter included in the box. Now, previously, this was something that I had never run into until dealing with a customer since I've been with AMP. And there's always the ability to use a Radio Pro 5 in replacement of a Radio Pro 4. But you can't use a Radio Pro 4 where a Radio Pro 5 is called for. So if your vehicle has OnStar and you don't want to use it, you still need a Radio Pro 5. But if your vehicle is not equipped with it and still has amplifiers and you don't have an RP4 in stock, you can always use a 5, but you can't put a 4 where the 5 would go. Correct, Eric?
I guess.
Yeah.
You can use the 4 in the place of the 5, but then you're going to lose the...
OnStar.
You'd lose all those
crash
things.
the bus or anything.
Yeah, and you wouldn't crash the bus. But
have to-
fives with more than anything else, you can use a 5 to replace a 4 and still have all the functions that are there and available.
It would just be a little bit more expensive of a solution.
Yeah, just a little bit more expensive. But if they're in the middle of an install
And you
you
need a solution,
need
right?
a solution, right, and you don't have a 4, then a 5 is always there to save the day in those particular applications.
So basically, you're saying you could use a 5 to replace a radio in any vehicle, whether it has OnStar or not. It's
Correct.
basically to simplify
But
it.
currently, 5s are strictly for OnStar vehicles.
Correct, yep.
Yeah.
Or like telematics, like
Or
you said, like,
telematics,
Hyundai
exactly.
Blue Link and other
Exactly.
systems
Don't
will have
get
different
too
things
far
and
ahead.
whatnot.
Come on now.
Oh, hey, just a little glimpse into the future.
Go listen to the
Foreshadowing.
future. All right.
Getting them excited.
All right. So, do any of you guys that are on PC or phone have any questions at this point before we move on to the next part of Radio Pro? You can unmute or type them into the text screen if any of you guys have questions at this point. If not, we're going to move on. No one's typing, so we're moving on. Pete Daly, who cuts your hair? Your mama.
I shaved my own head.
All right, let's go.
Love it. That's awesome.
All right, so these are the rear seat entertainment harnesses that we mentioned earlier that that are used in order to keep the rear seat entertainment working in select vehicles. The GM RVD is for 2007 newer GM vehicles with factory rear seat entertainment. The RVD2, 2012 and newer vehicles, and the CHY RVD is used in conjunction with the RP4 CH11 for Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep vehicles that have rear seat entertainment. Now, these harnesses can be used to pipe aftermarket video from the front screen to a rear screen, and you can also go from the rear screen back to the front screen. It is also a useful tool if you're adding headrest monitors to any of these vehicles also. Now, not every module is going to need this because a few of our Radio Pros, like the RP4, GM 11, and 31, have the video capability built directly onto the Radio Pro board itself. So always make sure.
Does it say the 31, the video is for the backup camera?
Yeah,
So
backup
you
camera,
still
right.
need the GMRVD
Yeah,
for
so
the-
you need that. So always make sure that whatever vehicle, once you pull up the website, look over all the instructions and all the features that are available to make sure you choose the exact right options or accessories you need for your particular customer.
On the CHY RVD, one thing to note, if the DVD player is separate from the radio itself, it's not going to be a CHY RVD for it. It's got an independent DVD player. The CHY-RVD is basically taking place for the ones that have it built into the radio itself.
Yeah, because some of the Chryslers, the DVD is in the center console or at the lower part of the dash.
Right.
Okay, cool. So, how do you update your Radio Pro, and what do you need? All of the Radio Pro modules, even if they're not being installed, if you have, like we have here on the wall, if you have your Radio Pros hanging in your showroom or in your stock room, you can always go through monthly or however your time frame is and check to make sure that your units are up to date. So what you would do is you would take your module, see if we can do this without getting too crazy here. You take the module and you slide the sleeve off. You open the side of the box. And you slide it out just enough to expose the actual Radio Pro module itself. Now, you can still slide it back in and put the sleeve back on it and put it right back in inventory without ever destroying the packaging. Once you expose this port on the Radio Pro, you're going to use a device called a PAC Up. The PAC Up is a serial to USB adapter that allows you to plug this module into the PC and go directly to the PAC-Audio website and update the firmware. There is a tutorial that shows you exactly how to update when you go to update on the website, and it makes it really quick and easy to alleviate any problems that may pop up from the fact that you have an older RP on your shelf before an installation. The RP can be used to update other things besides the Radio Pro, such as the PPSWI or the RC or the PS or the JACK, other steering control interfaces, along with the AAMP, which is one of the digital DSP amplifiers in our Phoenix Gold line of high-performance cardio products.
That PAC-Up does come with the PPSWI for you guys that have that and don't realize you have a PAC-Up. It is in the package for that as well.
Right. So if you don't have a PAC-Up in your shop and you guys are selling these Radio Pros, you definitely need a PAC-Up. You can reach out to your direct salesman here at AMP or to your local distributor or your rep and have them get you a PAC-Up so you have all the tools you need to stay up to date. So let's talk about Radio Pro 2, the next generation. Like that, Eric?
Nice.
Yeah. I was going to do Back to the Future, but I was like, the next generation. So yeah, you know.
Second generation?
Second generation. There you go. For all you Trekkies out there. So, Radio Pro Point 2. Eric, since you're the PAC product manager, I'm going to let you handle Radio Pro 2 so you can talk about some of the new features we're going with our newest product here.
Cool. So thanks, Jeff. Radio Pro 4.2. So Radio Pro Point 2 hardware, basically all these vehicles are now adding additional features. Like Jeff said, we don't want to remove any features from the vehicle. There's customizer user settings that, climate controls and convenience features like eco mode and things like that people want to retain in their vehicles. And the regular Radio Pro 4 and 5 hardware didn't have enough memory in it to support these extra features. So going forward and looking at the vehicles that are being produced now, we had to beef up the hardware, just build a little more support in to retain those extra features. So Radio Pro Point 2, we call it, because the hardware has now changed. Your Radio Pro will still have the same levels of Radio Pro 3, Radio Pro 4, and Radio Pro 5. So it'll just be a 4.2 or a 5.2. So the Point 2 doesn't change the level of functionality as far as whether it retains OnStar or your telematics, or whether it's pre-wired for a steering wheel control adapter. It just allows us to retain more of the convenience features in the vehicle. Another great feature about Radio Pro Point 2 is that you no longer need a PAC Up. Like Jeff said, there's an adapter the PAC Up takes a serial communication and converts it to USB. We've built that into the Radio Pro 4 and 5.2 hardware. So now you just take a micro USB cable, connect it directly to your PC, go to the website like you would before, pac-audio.com, look up the product you're looking to replace. If it's RP 4.2 CH21, download the firmware and flash the module. So
Cool.
the process is pretty much the same for updating. It's just a little easier because you don't need a PAC Up now. It's a direct connection. We're also covering new applications that we didn't cover before. I don't know we mentioned in the very beginning, Jeff mentioned all the Audis and Chryslers and Volkswagens that we cover with Radio Pro. Starting with these Radio Pro 4.2s, we're also going to now cover BMW and Hyundai SKUs as well. So some pretty cool new applications with really good retention features as well.
Cool. So since we're covering BMW and Hyundai, we're going to start getting into some digital amplifier, factory digital amplifiers in these vehicles. So the RPASPDIF is a new accessory that we're going to have.
So everybody loves acronyms, right? So we just want to make confusing part numbers with all kinds of letters in them. But really, RPA, Radio Pro Audio, so this is for amplified vehicles. And SPDIF is Sony Philips Digital Information File, or Digital Information Format.
Look
Think
at
of
the
it
big
as
brain on
HDMI.
Eric.
Think of it as HDMI, which is high definition multimedia,
Right?
but that's audio and video. RPA, SPDIF is really just digital audio. It's
Right.
like HDMI without video.
Right.
So it's just a digital audio that these vehicles come equipped with. Gives you better sound quality. You know, it's higher technology. It's not old analog amplified. It's digital now. So with the RP 4.2 harnesses, specifically the Hyundai SKUs, there's a little 4-pin plug on those, and you would just get the RPA SPDIF module, plug it into that 4-pin harness, and now you're going to retain the amplified audio in those vehicles. So it's just a plug-and-play module that retains the amplified audio.
Cool. So any ETA on when we're going to start physically seeing these Radio Pro .2s in the field?
The .2s are supposed to be out in April.
In
They'll start
April.
in the field in April.
Cool.
You'll see 2 Hyundai SKUs and a BMW SKU. And then the RPA SPDIF for the amplified vehicles a little bit later.
Cool. So of those new Radio Pros, we showed these at CES. There are 5 current models that hopefully will be available around April. 4.2 for Hyundai platform with BlueLink and without BlueLink. All the models excluding the Veloster. The Veloster is going to have its own model. So you're going to have a RP 4.2 HY11 for the Sonata, the Santa Fe, and all those million Hyundai vehicles. Then you're going to have a RP 4.2 HY12 that strictly handles the Veloster. Okay.
And then a little later in the year, you'll see the RP 5.2s, which will retain the BlueLink in those vehicles.
Correct. So you'll have a RP 5.2 HY11 and an RP 5.2 HY12. And then the BMW one is going to be the RP 4.2
BM21.
Okay.
So that's going to have, that's going to be our first Radio Pro SKU for BMW. Pretty awesome piece. It does come with its own speaker for all the chime reproduction, because in those BMWs it's more of like a tone than a chime. It's not a bing,
Correct.
bing, bing. It's a brum, brum.
Mm-hmm.
So we do provide a small speaker that you can
Can you
install
do
in the
that one more
vehicle.
time?
Brum, brum. You want the bing, bing? I don't know which one.
No, that's cool.
We provide that speaker. It's just a 2-pin plug that plugs into the side of the RP 4.2 21
Okay,
module.
so that's what that little 2-pin
Yep.
plug next to the blue
Next to
reset
the
button.
USB and your programming button. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
speaker port.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's the output. It's going to originally come with a speaker, and eventually you'll be able to connect that to the existing speaker in the dash of the BMW for even better sound quality. So.
Cool thing I saw on that too was using the iDrive controller to mimic some of the steering wheel controls
Yep.
as well. So
Yeah, the engineering team's doing a great job of retaining all the functionality and making it as user-friendly as possible. So
Right.
trying to make it as easy for the driver to access those functions as it was when they had the original radio in place.
Right. That's one thing that I can say about working here at AMP is that we have a very, very hardworking in-field engineering team. Tony, Ernie, and Greg, and Gary. Gary's a super whiz out there. Always in these vehicles. We're at dealerships constantly tearing vehicles apart to make sure that we always have the most up-to-date products that are available to our customers like you guys listening to us today. So like Eric said, the new Radio Pro .2 second generation is going to be an easier direct USB connectivity, which will no longer need the pack up, but we're still talking about potential April time frame, so you guys still need your pack ups for everything that's currently available in the stores now. Your distributors are buying directly from us. The new chips in these devices are more powerful than what we have now, so we're going to have the ability to work with all of the newer vehicles as they come down the line. The connectivity for future radio replacements is going to give us the ability to do some things above and beyond our competitors. And also the improved sound quality. We're always about better sound quality, the fact that we're replacing radios and speakers and amps in vehicles, and the fact that we can do some pretty custom things. I don't know if this is going to be 100% in there, but I've heard we have the ability to do some custom switching, possibly, maybe. We're not really going to talk about
cool
that,
stuff
but
coming down the road. It's definitely some app integration, smartphone integration for Radio Pro, for user settings and whatnot. And we are making a PC application that allows you to set user settings in the vehicle too. So
cool.
Definitely some cool app software-driven integration with Radio Pro in the future.
Cool. Radio Pro 2 is going to be a big hit for us. All right. So, what happens when you have a problem? Who are you going to call? Like that?
Call Rick. That's right.
All right. There's two different ways to contact us, guys. I mean, there's a lot of different ways actually to contact us, but we're going to talk about and focus on two of them. If you guys are not connected to us on Facebook, we have a AAMP of America tech support group on Facebook. If you aren't connected to us, get connected to us. That's a really easy way, because we all live and die on Facebook daily, every day, talking about what's going on in our lives and posting pictures of the cars we work on and so forth and so on. But we're all pretty much connected to this tech support site. It comes directly to my phone. I know, Rick, you're on all the time, Tony and Eric. All right, we'll go back and answer that guy's question. But all the guys, especially Jeremy, Jeremy is always connected to Facebook. Even when he's sleeping, Jeremy's on Facebook. And a lot of our really good dealers constantly even chime in to help out other companies or other installers when they have questions. Some of our good guys out there, like Shaughnessy up in Canada, we get a lot of questions and answers from Chris McNulty, Ray West, Luke Fiddler, who's a local guy here.
Ken Ward.
Yeah, Ken Ward and the guys out on the West Coast. I mean, we have a really tight group of dealers that really support our products, and we support them 24/7. We talk to our guys all the time. A lot of them have our personal cell phones and are directly connected to us. So if you guys aren't connected to us on Facebook, you can connect to us there on the tech support site. Old school guys, you can call us on the phone if you like. Here are the phone numbers. Technical support if you're outside the U.S. or inside the U.S., and these are our hours, 9 to 7, Monday through Thursday, Eastern Standard Time, Friday 9 to 6, and we even have tech support on Saturday. Rick, how many techs do we currently have available?
On any given day, or Saturdays, or
period?
It's generally 7 guys manning the phones, give or take a couple if a vacation or something's going on, but. And then Saturdays, we're kind of limited. We don't have access to engineering or anything, so it's 2 guys on Saturdays.
But 9 times out of 10, if you guys have questions and you reach out, you can't reach tech support in any of those hours that you see on the slide. This is why Facebook is so important. I don't know about you guys, but I know that when it's 2 o'clock in the morning and my 3-year-old's crying, she wants something to drink or whatever, she's woken me up, the first thing I do before I go back to sleep is I grab my phone, because it's going to take a minute, and I always go to Facebook and see what's going on. So if you guys have questions about things like that, you can always reach us at Facebook. What's the Facebook page name? Let's go back. It's called AAMP of America Tech Support, or just AAMP Tech Support.
Send us a request.
Yes. Go to the group, send a request. If you don't see it, you can... if you see my little icon up in the top corner, Jeff Smith, Rick Costello, Eric LeClaire, Ernie Hartman, Tony, any of those guys, just to let them know you want to join or send a request. Jeremy does that. Thank you, Gordy, for popping up the link there in the comment section. You can go directly to it, and we can get you hooked up.
It is for dealers only, so we do ask if you have a pretty generic Facebook account that doesn't show anything for any kind of car audio background work or anything, we'll generally try to keep those people out. We get people that'll try to get in there and just start posting spam. So make sure it says somewhere in there, like maybe on about, that you work for such and such shop.
That's almost the most time to do spam. All right. So tech support is always available, and we are actually adding, hopefully, some new tech support guys for a little few different West Coast hours. We'll let you guys know about that in the coming weeks. So, for any firmware you guys need, or to make sure you guys are always up to date, all these updates are done directly on pac-audio.com. That's where all this information on any other PAC products beyond the Radio Pros can always be found on pac-audio.com. Anything you guys want to add before we wrap it on up here?
Did they answer the gentleman's question?
They already did answer his
Oh,
question. While
okay.
one of the guys
Yeah,
asked
take
what
care.
was the model number for the digital amps, and Pete Daly, of course, our lovely rep at Marketing Pros in Texas, who was Rep Firm of the Year last year for Mobile Electronics Magazine, helped us with that. So we're going to open up the floor again for questions. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, or comments, or anything you guys want to share with us on Radio Pro, feel free to type it in or just unmute your phones, and we can go from there.
Actually, it's funny you talk about spam. I saw a video online the other day of kids reacting to spam. So they took the label off the jar and gave kids.
Okay, Arthur?
Months ago, I had a Chrysler Town Country 2008, and you noticed that you did have your entertainment plug for the Chryslers. I did come into an issue with that vehicle. There was no SKU. The customer had a factory monitor, no DVD player. The DVD was actually put in the original radio before we replaced the radio. There was no SKU, there was nothing out in the industry that would allow her to keep the rear entertainment DVD player with the newborn camera radio that we were installing. The artist that you mentioned today, will that allow for me to call my summertime or whatever it becomes available for us to use this radio profile and allow her to keep that factory rear entertainment DVD player monitor? My apologies.
Correct, yes. So did you use the RP4 CH11 or use a different module?
I used a different module because when I looked on
Still
the
use
Max's
this
website, there was something
CH4 RPD.
that
I would have
actually
to
blocked
look
me
at the
for it.
application.
I believe this was about 2 months ago.
Okay. In that particular vehicle, the CHY RVD should be able to handle that. Eric is.
What do you make on it?
It was a 2008 Chrysler Town and Country.
Yeah, you're good. CHYRVD.
Yeah, CHY RVD. Eric just verified it will be able to handle that need. So call your customer up and get them in and make some money.
Thanks, man.
All right, no problem. Let's see. Someone here typed in: do all Radio Pro interfaces have the chime volume adjustment? No, not everyone has it on the module. Some vehicle settings can be used in order to change the chime volume in some of the vehicles.
So there's 3 that have it right on the module, the RP3, GM11, GM12, and GM13. Those 3 RP3 SKUs have it right on the module.
Correct.
And then the RP5 for GM comes with a CMX, which is also adjustable.
Correct. Right. So not everyone, but the chimes are normally, if they're not adjustable from the module or from the external chime module, are adjustable through factory controls. That was from Travis. Now, Adam Porter, the Hyundai piece that is going to be made for the Veloster, is it going to replace a radio factory amp integration, or?
I can answer that if you want. That's
Yeah,
going to
Eric.
be the RP 4.2 hardware, and so it's going to be, the hardware itself is just going to do the radio replacement and steering wheel control retention. If you've got amplified audio in the Veloster, you'll need to get that RPA-SPDIF for the digital audio conversion. So it would be a separate SKU that's add-on. But by doing that, we were able to do 2 SKUs for Hyundai. So an RP 4.2 HY11, RP 4.2 HY12. That covers all the Hyundais, and just the amplified module to do amplified when you need it. Whereas, like, if you look at our competition, they have 5 different SKUs just to cover those same applications.
Cool. All right. Any other questions, comments, guys, out there?
Definitely good questions.
Yeah, very good questions. All right. There's nothing else out there.
You guys can always hit us up on the AMP Tech Support
Yep.
Facebook page if you have other questions that you didn't get to submit or you think of after we end this meeting.
Yep, always hit us up. You can put any questions you want, post pictures of problems you're having on the Facebook tech support page. And we look forward to seeing you guys every month with a different product. Next month is going to be Phoenix Gold. We're going to go over some classic amplifier setup adjustments and
go over just some basic audio stuff and give you guys a few tips and tricks on how to work with our products. So Jeff Smith, AAMP of America, Eric LeClaire, Rick Costello, and I appreciate all you guys from joining in and taking out a part of your day to be with us, and we look forward to hearing from you guys and help you guys grow your business. All right?